All right, it was a big week one for our ISK Legacy League. If the draft recap was of interest, and a few of you left some comments or subscribes, which was nice, and no one left me any massive insults. So I figured I'd try and do one for week one as well. Let's see how long I can keep this up for, or how many I do, but I have time now, so why not? If you're looking forward to other people's analysis, like the people who get paid for it, I'm not saying they're any more special than you or I, or even sometimes any more knowledgeable, but we'll leave that to them. So in terms of some of the injury reports, I think I may allude to a couple of them, but I don't have any more up to date here, and you're likely even more up to date because you're watching this well after I recorded it. If you're looking for just kind of recaps of playing positions, again, that's not necessarily what you're going to get here. What you are going to get is a little bit of commentary on our matchups, what happened in our league, and I do have a stopwatch, so I am trying my best to keep myself as brief as possible. In our league, I think we did pretty well overall, considering very low fantasy scores this week, and I'll get to that in our week one recap of the NFL. Then we'll move on to some matchup stuff, and then week two. We had some people forget injured players in their roster. We had some people forget that football was played on Thursday, but overall, football's back, and so let's get after it. Number one, positionally, quarterbacks. They were not good this week. They sucked. You have people like Mahomes was all right. Obviously, people like Tua played great. Herbert did fine. Mac Jones randomly did great if you had him, which no one did. So maybe people want to go pick him up, especially Aaron Rodgers-y people. But in general, the Allens, the Hurts, Burrows, not great. All right, some even, Lamar Jackson, Daniel Jones is probably still lying on the ground after Dallas. Now, this can come down. We don't need to overreact, or maybe some people like to overreact. I would say this is really indicative of the last couple of years. Coaches have been not putting in their top quarterbacks in preseason games, so they're not getting a lot of looks. I think it's one of those things that's what everyone's doing. So if you do it and you can blame it, then every coach does it, so it's fine. If you're the one who takes a risk and makes a decision and starts putting their quarterback in, some quarterbacks did go in, but I'm looking at the people like Burrows now and that barely played. They get hurt, you're in trouble, so people just don't make those decisions, right? So week one and week two in the last couple of years have, in some people's cases, worked as almost like the preseason. So I don't know if people are going to panic yet, but it's up to you. Teams of overreactions, tight ends, even worse. In most of the leagues that we're running here, most leagues that I'm in, the top 5 tight ends of the week were not taken by anybody. I even, if you look up the names, some of them aren't even familiar to experienced fantasy players. In terms of the names, I mean, obviously Kelsey and Andrews being out is going to impact that. TJ Hawkinson was one of the few that actually had a name before and did okay. Ingram, you could probably throw in that pile. Everybody else was mediocre. So if you had a 0 from Dallas Goedert, that's not great, but it didn't impact you as much as the 0 from Drake London or T. Higgins, because wide receivers actually played quite well this week. Tight ends did not. Let's see how that works. That works. Number 3, injuries. Just as I'm recording this, I'm pretty sure Rodgers is out, Dobbins is out. You've got people, and we're talking year if you haven't figured that out. I'm sure you know that if you're an owner of those people. In my matchup recordings, I probably didn't know that yet. People like Eckler, Jones, Deontay Johnson. There's a ton of people that got tweaked. Some might be as bad, like concussion protocol. So you want to take a look. Some have tweaked different parts. So footballers always play with injuries. So it just is what it is. But it's good for you to try and take a second look if you have any of those people. But this is where we get to the core of week one. Do we overreact? Do we hit the waiver wire like crazy? Do we try and add drop all the people who had better weeks than we expected? Or do we just assume that week one might be an anomaly? I mentioned people like Daniel Jones. Is he going to be an okay quarterback? Just not against maybe Dallas defense is that good. Maybe he's that crap. So if you're one of those owners, try and balance it out and hopefully make the right decision. Or hopefully you don't. Hopefully I make the right decision and you just kind of flounder around for a while. Either way, there's your as fast as I could. I had my stopwatch on this time. Let's see if I actually met the deadline. Now on to matchups. Matchups, we'll go top down. So best score of the week, what by a little bit actually, was Senor Rushki. Gene, unfortunately, also had one of the lower ones. I think the lowest one. So match made in heaven there. They were 76 and change difference. That's the largest point differential. Fortunately for you, Gene, it is not a beer buy-in league, so you're fine. You just take the loss like the rest of us who took a loss. The differential doesn't really matter unless there's a tie. In every other league I'm in, if you had Hill or you had Dallas's defense, you probably won. Rushke had both, and then he didn't really have anyone else with an absolute stinker. DJ Moore is probably the closest candidate for that. Allen actually would probably be the other one. But considering the fact that most of us had at least one quarterback hit the skids, see Senor Tannenhill on the other side here, he was able to withstand it. Especially with, his receiver output was fine. People were hitting close to their predicteds, and with two guys going off like that in terms of Dallas's defense and Hill just dominating the week, that's all he needed. Kind of sucks for Gene to watch Waddle just get ignored. He gets 4 catches for 78, which is fine, but it's not 11 for 215 and a couple scores. Little surprising that Gene's running backs weren't used a little bit more. They weren't getting as much love, especially since most of them were in tight games. The bright spot for both of these is, I mentioned the tight end palooza, or tight end apocalypse, sorry. Both of these were in the top 5 for tight ends of this week. TJ was 3rd, and probably the biggest name that didn't completely tank. Ingram could also qualify for that. He was the 5th overall, and I think those were the only 2 in the top 5 this week that weren't on the free agent market. In terms of their bench, they both left some points there, not enough to really swing it all. Gainwell is actually looking like he might be the starter in Philly, so good for you, Gene, on that one. But Algiers was the running back 4, I think, this week in this format. So obviously they're doing nothing but in Atlanta, but giving people carries, so that's helpful. Rushke had the wide receiver 3 as well as the wide receiver 1, but he didn't need him, so he left him on his bench. So aside from the fact that Tony's getting bullied out of playing again by Twitter and X, Myers also has a bit of a health issue, so let's follow that one, see how it goes. And the massage man himself, Watson, scoring more on the bench than I think actually his 2 quarterbacks combined. They both look like at least they got some options, but they might be hitting the waiver wire this weekend. So, Gene, tough luck, buddy. Rushke, congratulations on the win. All right, second top scorer was Woody. Matt obviously needs to multitask a little bit more. Apparently, he can still draft a pretty solid team. Jeff kind of had a disappointing one. This was supposed to be a closer tie. I think the biggest one, there was a couple notable bagels. T. Higgins is one of them. Cleveland's defense might be good, but who knew it might be that good? I think it also falls victim to just the Burrow being out of step. No one in Cincinnati really going off too much. I think Jeff's bright spots, his running backs, both Chubb and Etienne, did quite fine. They overperformed. Montgomery even overperformed, so it looks like his running backs are quite set. He just might have to examine his wide receivers or consider the fact that things happen and it's a weird week 1. He had the guts to start Ainhee Purdy, and he got paid off for that. Unfortunately, Geno Smith, that was supposed to be the better deal, especially against Rams, that was probably a huge surprise. In terms of Woody, he's got to be happy with Eckler, although let's watch some injury concerns. I have him in another league too, so trust me, I'll be watching that with you. Was definitely disappointed by Hurts, but it didn't hurt him overall. I'm sure I could have been more clever with that one. Tua, though, the big winner. He was our QB1 this week, coming out and cashing in a ton of points. So Barkley, a little disappointing, but overall, Woody's running backs were fine. And who knows in terms of the wide receivers, Zay Flowers, if he's going to be the guy in Baltimore, that would be huge for Matty. Jefferson's supposed to be getting some love. I don't know. They went to a rookie instead, so let's see how it goes. On the bench, there were some points left behind, but nothing too dangerous. I think a few adjustments could have been made by Dibbler and Woody alike. He's got to love the way Dobbs was playing, but nothing to really throw off the matchup. So, unfortunate, Jeff, to start off with a loss, but congratulations, Woody. You're 1-0. By far the shock of the week, if you looked at the beginning. And Marco, congratulations. You did not go over the top in terms of trashing Tim for keeping Cooper Kupp in a flex, not in a flex spot, but I mean like a flex. Tim saying he doesn't need a full team to take you down. That's pretty impressive. Or let's say hypothetically he was going away that weekend and he forgot that Cooper Kupp is actually hurt, Timmy. You might want to put him on your IR because you actually can. Didn't matter, though. Jefferson went off. Who knew? Sling and Sammy Howell did just fine, but Baker Mayfield overperformed in terms of the quarterback race. That's a massive victory, and that's really what let Marco down here. The margin of victory wasn't huge, and I would say let's look at the quarterbacks. Daniel Jones, it's going to be hard to tell. Is he that bad, or is Dallas just that freaking good, or what combination of both? Just looked like he was pressured every single snap. If you were watching that game, it was almost painful. And then obviously Rodgers, you just hate to see he gets one throw and one sack, and he was wearing a boot on the sideline. So, I'm sure there's a Canadian and a boot joke that I could be making right now, but instead I'm just kind of waiting to see that combination of the 1-2. looked like it was going to be your bread and butter this year, buddy, but I don't know. Got to be happy with your running backs, though. I mean, Madison did what he should, but Pollard and Robinson both went off. Pollard was actually a top 5. He was 5th this week in terms of production, and actually Bijan was 6th. He was just outside, so that's pretty good for you. I mean, no one of them busted off an 83-yarder like Brees did, but hey, beggars can't be choosers. You did leave a little bit on the bench. You could have gotten a few more points on your defense. And Pittman, I had him in like 175 leagues last year, and he didn't do this once for me. So congratulations. You got some productivity out of Pittman. Kirk, though, looked like he was a bit of a disappointment. Tim, you didn't really have much on the bench, but you didn't even have all your starters, so who knows what you needed. You also both, I thought it was cute that you both agreed not to score any points with your tight ends. Both fairly big upsets on that one. I'd say Goddard's a bit more of a surprise, but who knows what happened there? I think Aaron Jones, though, I kind of forgot to mention him. He was our 3rd overall scoring running back this week, so had a great game. But he was against the Bears, who, no offense, just can't beat Green Bay ever. I mean, Rushke, you can answer this. If it's a rivalry, shouldn't they both occasionally win? I don't know how. Anyway, I'm sure Marco will go back to the training camp here. He'll go back to the board. He's going to probably hit the waiver wire in a few short hours, I imagine. We'll see what he comes up with. Tim, if someone could remind him that he's in the league, that'd be fantastic. He can make a couple moves. I know he's been super busy, and I'm not actually making fun. It sounds like he was going through a lot the last couple weeks, so I'm glad he's back in Kenya and glad shit's going well. Just maybe someone remind him just to get Cup out of there. It'll make me feel better if he's got a fully functional roster next week. But Marco, tough luck, pal. I think you were the highest scoring loser, so you got that going for you. And Timmy, good luck, buddy. You were 1-0. Great start. All right, our 4th overall scorer, and a great example of how both teams can underperform, but just one underperformed a little bit better than the other. We got Connor taking this one over Rennie. I think even his combo, just his wide receiver crew looked great. I mean, CeeDee Lamb didn't have a great game, but that's partially because he didn't need to. Dallas was scoring enough on defense. They didn't need to score on offense. Diggs had a great game. Ridley had a great game, and he's looking good there. I think he's going to want a little bit more of his running backs, obviously, but his quarterbacks did all right. Russell Wilson did what he was supposed to. Mahomes just underperformed a bit, but with no receivers, that's actually pretty good. On Rennie's side, unlucky with the running or with the quarterbacks. I mean, again, Dax didn't need to do anything, so he didn't. He just kind of treaded water, handed off to Pollard, and watched his defense dominate. And Burrow, I still don't know what happened. I watched part of that game. I can't understand what's going on. Hopefully, he'll take his head out of his butt soon. Super unlucky. Looks like Dobbins is definitely out for the week based on everything I'm reading. I think they've already done the surgeries. So I think he's hasta lasagna. So you'll probably be hitting the waiver wire because if I look downstairs, I don't know how much running back depth I see here for you. So let's not be shocked because Cami Akers too wasn't getting a whole lot of love, weirdly enough. He got the touchdown to save you, but you might want to go shopping. Huge positive, though. Ayuk had a monster game. He was the wide receiver 2. In most weeks, he'd be the wide receiver 1, but in most weeks, we don't have Hill just going and dominating the world like he did. So there are some pluses there as well. Connor, even for you, you left a lot of love on the bench, man. And Love was, weirdly enough, our QB3 this week. Our QB2, who we will not mention because he's actually a free agent if anyone wants to go get Mac Jones. But yeah, actually, weirdly enough, of the top 5 QBs, 3 of them were not started, and 1 was not on a team. Tua was the only one that was actually in the lineup. So that could also be why our quarterback, collectively honked this week. Either way, margin of victory wasn't super close. So Rennie, I think even with a couple moves on the bench here, I don't think it would have helped you out. I think, tough luck on the running back scene. We'll see how you bounce back. But Connor, and apparently Seamus as well, congrats on the win. You're 1-0. All right, down to our only real matchup. It came down to just 4 points, or 4.08 if we're really doing the math. Both of us underperformed, and we both underperformed just spectacularly. My quarterback sucked. I mean, Lawrence looked fine. It looked like he was going to take off, and then Jackson just didn't do much. But Maxon raised me a Cousins, who was our quarterback 4 this week. So I think I lied. In my previous one, I said we only had 2. We actually had 3. I forgot Cousins was the starter. But I think you left Richardson on your bench. Yep, there he is. So he could have helped you out as well. Biggest downside Debbie Downer for you has to be your wide receivers. You got a good set of wide receivers, but Chase didn't do much. Lockett and Gabe Dave, but that's really a product of their offenses. They weren't throwing a whole lot. I don't think it's their fault. I think it's just the way it went down. McCaffrey was pretty much what saved the week for you. He was our running back one, showed why you took him with a lot of cash. You took him early. I think 152 plus his receiving yards. I think he's looking at, I think that was his best productivity in terms of yards since he's been a 49er. My running backs, like I said, sucked. Well, Robinson was all right, but everyone else, Neil Bueno. Did leave some points on the bench, but I do have some people out and suspended, so not much I'm going to do there. Addison on the bench for you, buddy. It does look like an interesting one. I don't know who he replaces, but might want to be a consideration. Either way, a win is a win, so whether it was 4 points or 50 points, you're 1-0 and I'm 0-1, so congrats, Maxon. All right, as we prep, I can hit the magic button here, and we're on to week 2. Looking at some matchups, I know people haven't changed their rosters, and like I said, I think there's a handful of us that are going to be hitting the waiver wire pretty hard to see how things roll. Looks like Rennie and I are due for potentially a close matchup. In fact, all of them seem pretty close except for maybe this one. But like I said, it wouldn't shock me if Marco is going to be going to look to recover some injuries. Tim as well will fill in his roster. So I think Yahoo will predict us to be pretty close. Looks like we got a couple of 2-0 matchups going after it though here. So we definitely, 1-0. We will have some 2-0 teams, at least 2 of them, whereas there's another one that's split. And then us losers are all going to play each other so that at least we can get some wins. I'll take a win even if it's off a fellow loser. Looking forward to it. So best of luck. If I don't say anything before, I don't see anything before. Rennie, just a reminder, games play on Thursday. Just heads up. Apparently Maxon needed that one as well. He just didn't get burnt. Sorry about the bagel. I didn't want to point it out in your matchup, but I'll point it out now. What sucks is this is going to burn me in the ass because Kelsey's going to come back. He's going to have like 10 catches for 250 yards, and that's how you're going to beat me just because I said something stupid. So I'm already kicking myself. But to everyone else other than Rennie, best of luck in week 2.